Hello everyone, and welcome back to Turkish series Stars. I hope your day is unfolding beautifully. Today we're unpacking a topic that has startled fans, baffled onlookers, and sparked a wildfire of discussion. We're talking about the tuba that ended up getting struck, and more importantly, the astonishing wave of reactions after Gökberk Yildirim weighed in. The comments, the tone, the timing, everything about it has people reeling. I know many of you already caught whispers of what happened, and some of you clicked in because curiosity simply wouldn't let you scroll past. Either way, settle in. This one is layered, surprising, and very, very human, especially when you add in how it reflects on Gökberk and on Semra Arda, who has been right there with him in the public gaze. Quick question before we go deeper. Have you ever seen something so out of the blue that you were left without words, standing there with your mind racing? Keep that feeling in your pocket, because what we're about to revisit taps into exactly that. And if you love being the first to hear the stories everyone will be debating tomorrow, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish series Stars and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Let's get to the heart of it. The headline is simple and bizarre at the same time. A tuba, yes, the deep-voiced brass, was somehow struck. The drama revolves around those sharp words, struck, and how, and by whom, and why this object of orchestral dignity became the center of a mini-storm. But here's the twist, the debate truly ignited when Gökberk Yildirim spoke about it. His take didn't just add context, it spurred fresh questions, created complicated feelings, and flipped expectations upside down. That is exactly what we're unpacking. What he said, why it surprised so many people, and how the couple dynamic with Semra Arda colors what followed. When someone says a tuba was hit, the mind sprints through possibilities. Was it a silly accident during a rehearsal? A backstage mishap after an event? Something that happened in transit, a trunk that slammed, a door that misjudged its path? Could it have been a sport-related collision, a stray ball, an electric scooter threading where it shouldn't? The scenarios multiply, and each one changes the temperature of the moment. Was it lighthearted chaos, or something that caused real damage? And here's where Gökberk's perspective enters like a spotlight swinging at just the right second. What he chose to highlight turned a small oddity into a conversation about meaning. Who is Gökberk in this particular frame? Depending on which circle is talking, he might be the actor with a poetic streak, a cultural observer with a knack for tightening a thought until it snaps, a performer who cares about craft and ritual, or a thoughtful public figure who sees art as a living thing. He's admired for precision on screen, but his words off-screen can be just as sharp. And let's not forget Semra Arda in the frame, her presence, her careful grace, the way she amplifies or gently anchors the mood around them. As a couple, they project a balance of sensitivity and clarity. When one speaks, the other's silence often speaks too. Reports say what floored people wasn't the incident itself, but the tone and content of Gökberk's commentary. It was called surprising, not because it was loud or reckless, but because it ventured where most would not. Was it wit wrapped in a serious coat? Was it analysis that slipped into metaphor? Was it empathy with an edge? The surprise comes down to how unexpected it felt in that exact moment. If the tuba suffered real harm, a philosophical riff would seem oddly luminous or slightly jarring. If the incident was minor, taking it too seriously could feel like a theatrical overreach, unless, of course, it unlocked something deeper. To gauge why people reacted, we also need to examine where the words landed first. Did he speak in a quick story, a late-night live, a measured interview, or during a podcast that delights in tangents? The platform can shape the heat of a message. A clipped line on social media can detonate faster than a long-form discussion where nuance has space to breathe. And did Semra signal anything? A subtle repost, a gentle clarification, a simple moment of stillness? When both halves of a public couple move, even slightly, the crowd reads every tilt and shade. Then there's the question of the tuba itself. What kind of instrument are we talking about? Something borrowed, something storied, a well-loved piece with years of breath caught in its echo? Instruments aren't merely objects, they carry fingerprints of memories in shows and sweat and late-night practice rooms. If it was historic, the idea of damage brushes against reverence. If it was ordinary, the reaction becomes an odd reflection of our attention. Why did this matter so much? In both cases, the wrong comment at the wrong time could cut against the grain of expectation, and the right one could elevate the whole thing to something strangely beautiful. What truly shocks, again and again, is the shattering of assumptions. We predict one tone and are handed another, we expect a clinical take and receive poetry, or we wait for a serious lament and get a featherlight quip. That seems to be what happened here. Instead of talking logistics, who pays, who aired, how reparable it might be, Gökberk turned the spotlight onto what the moment could symbolize. A tuba, with its cavernous sound, is often the grounding tone in a musical body. To see it struck, to hear its silence afterward, invites a reading that is not just about brass and dents. It glances toward fragility, toward the uneasy marriage of art and the chaos of movement. And in the public square, that kind of reading is thrilling to some and baffling to others. Imagine one scenario that has been floated in murmurs: a rogue drone, out of control, clips the bell of the instrument. The expected debate would be about tech safety, rehearsals gone wild, complacency, rules. Instead, what if Gökberk describes the tuba's sound as the ground's low heartbeat and the drone as the impatient whir of modern noise, and then frames the impact as a collision between permanence and speed? It would be an audacious angle, startling, maybe even refreshing. Or consider another version: an instrument slips off a riser in a rehearsal room and hits the floor. People gasp. The usual reaction is pity and a practical scramble. But then he says something like, "The interruption has changed the music we haven't heard yet, and now every note will carry the memory of the fall." It's not expected, and precisely because of that, it stays with people. Part of why this resonates is that it asks us to sit with subtlety. Not everything demands outrage or a spreadsheet. Sometimes the most sincere response is a metaphor that reframes the frame, a moment when an object stops being an object and becomes a mirror. People who follow Gökberk know he is capable of these turns, and people who know Semra know she values how words land. The pair's shared aura adds a second layer to how the public digests it. If he goes large with ideas, she often brings them back to earth with a glance or a single measured sentence. If he is the spark, she's often the shape of the flame. And still, a wilder speculation peaked above the crowd: what if he was involved in the impact itself? Bold thought, and not one we can answer. If that were true, his words might be read as defense, as a careful justification, as a tender apology in disguise, or simply as a way to drive the conversation to a sphere where blame matters less than meaning. But set that aside for a moment, and the heart of the surprise remains. The quality of his observation. Was it about human nature? About the way audiences hunger for something to feel? About how easily objects and moments are transformed by our attention? Some argue his lines were brilliant, others think they were so fanciful they looped back into humor. Either way, unforgettable. Influence matters too. When a passing remark comes from an ordinary voice, it drifts. When it's delivered by someone with a devoted following, and magnified by the presence of a partner as visible and thoughtful as Semra, the echo is louder and longer. If you've watched them for any time, you know they don't shrink from layered conversations. They aren't afraid of an idea that complicates a moment. That pattern sets up the crowd to expect the unexpected, which allows a tuba story to punch above its weight. Ultimately, we're not just dissecting a damaged instrument or a slick clip of commentary. We're looking at the fascinating way a small event can become a prism for attention, empathy, art, and the hazard of momentum. The tuba was struck. The words that followed, the ones Gökberk chose, reframed the incident and startled audiences who thought they knew what would be said. For the people who admire him, it was a reminder of why they do. For the people who were left scratching their heads, it became a conversation about tone, timing, and the edges of interpretation. And floating through everything is Semra's presence, calm, perceptive, poised, a reminder that even when one voice leads, the duet is never far behind. So here we are, on Turkish series Stars, taking a breath and looking back at every angle. What might have caused the impact, what the tuba itself may represent to those who love music, who Gökberk is to his audience, what happens when a metaphor leaps out of a casual moment, and how a couple we think we understand can still surprise us with the way they navigate a ripple in the day. The exact truth of how it happened may still be in motion. Maybe it was a fleeting mishap. Maybe it will be a charming footnote someday. Or maybe it will sit in the memory because of the words attached to it. In the end, that's the point, isn't it? Facts matter, of course. But so often, what we hold on to is the interpretation that helps us feel like we witnessed more than a dent in brass. We hang on to the story that teaches us how attention works, how narrative is built, how a couple's public language evolves. Here, the shock wasn't only in the strike, it was in the way the strike was translated into meaning and momentum. And that's something both admirers and skeptics can admit, the conversation drew us in. The surprise, orchestrated or not, was real. We've mapped the contours as best we can, from the bite-sized possibilities to the bigger reflections, from the platform question to the way a single sentence can turn an object into a symbol. Whether you heard his words on a quick clip or a long chat, whether you felt moved or baffled, the fact remains that Gökberk Yildirim found a way to make a small ripple audible. And with Semra Arda in frame, the ripple looked a little different, felt a little warmer, and maybe made a little more sense. Thank you for staying with us through this unusual, very human detour. I want to hear your take. Which part of his response caught you off guard? Do you think the surprise came from the content of the comment, the timing, or the contrast between the incident and the interpretation? Do you have your own theory about what actually happened to the tuba? Tell us in the comments. Your reflections always spark the best conversations here. If this deep dive kept you curious and entertained, please like the video, share it with friends who love a good cultural puzzle, and make sure you're subscribed to Turkish series Stars. We've got more stories, more debates, and more moments that deserve attention coming your way. See you in the next one.